So how do we create a sort of science fiction sky like this one, for example, where you have two suns in the sky that are capable of emitting light and generating cast shadows, and where the suns might be different colours? Okay, so I'm going to start off with my default empty scene, and I've got the camera facing what I call north. Now I'm going to need control of the sun in this particular example, so what I'm going to do is hold the control key down and the alt key down, double click on the sun rollerball, and that allows me, when I hold control and alt, to left click in the wireframe and position the sun wherever I want in the sky. That's going to be quite handy. The next thing I'm going to need is something just to cast me some shadows in the scene, so I'll create a cylinder just to have a feeling for what's going on with respect to the lighting, and I'm going to pop this window in my other monitor so I can grab some colours quite easily. It's a handy thing having two monitors. So I go into Sky and Fog, and I'm going to go for a custom sky, so I've got more control of the sky, and I'm going to hold the alt key down and left click on the clouds. If I wanted to add any clouds, I'd probably do that in another cloud plane or use a volumetric cloud slab. But we'll give it a go with the Bryce clouds when we're done. But first of all, we're setting up the lighting in the sky. So I need to get my sky more or less like these skies in the images, so I'll make it sort of this dark browny colour, and I'll make the sun glow colour a bit yellowy. And what I'm going to do is pop the sun, and if I want to know where the horizon is, I can just switch it on just here. So there's my horizon. I'm going to pop the sun on the horizon, then just slide it just slightly below the horizon, so it's creating a glow, but it isn't a visible object in the scene. I'm going to convert this sky into a HDRI image and use that to provide ambient light, but I don't want the sun in the scene because then it'll become a predominant light source that's captured into the HDRI backdrop. I think this horizon's possibly looking a bit bright, but then again that's going to be hidden behind haze because we're going to combine it with the Bryce sky to create some effects. So I'll give this a go. So go into the Skylab, image based lighting, use HDRI image. I only need the sky dome because I only want lights above the horizon, and just go use sky and check. So there we go, that's created my HDRI image. And you can turn the quality down so I can get good speed out of it, and I'm going to reduce the intensity but add this in to the existing sky, so it's going to get brighter again. Reduce specular output, render in scene so I can see my cylinder, and turn the intensity up so I can see I've got some shadows being cast. So I'll just check out of here. You'll notice the sunlight's been disabled automatically. Check out of here, give it a render. Now unlike when you load a HDRI image, we've still got the haze active, so that can be used, and bear in mind we're adding this onto our sky, so the sun glow here is getting added together with the existing sun colour. So if I turn this to black, you'll see that that's reduced that effect considerably. So I've still got some glow occurring there, but it's not as bright as it was. So I can now adjust this sun glow colour and maybe take it down in its intensity a bit, and to change the effect on the horizon. So you can see we've got quite a bit of effect here. I know we've not got other suns in yet, I'm just setting the background up. So if I wanted my other sun to look like it's going down just there, that will be the effect I'm aiming for. The horizon's looking a bit bright and it isn't in these example scenes I've been looking at, so I'm going to change the haze colour and make it a sort of darker browny grey colour like that. It's fairly low at the moment. I can lift that up. When I lift it up, the clouds will become active, which will interfere with what I'm doing. So for the time being, hold the alt key down and click on the clouds and just take them out again. So this is my ambient light, and now I'm going to add in some other light sources. So I'll just reduce the effect of the ambient. I might bring it up later, but I want to see what the other light sources are going to do. I want my fake sun going in on the horizon just here, but what I'm going to do before I do that is save this sky position so I can return my Bryce sun to this position. I'm going to create a default Bryce sphere, put it here, modify the material. I'm going to make it a volume material and give it full ambient output, edge softness, fuzzy factor to soften the edges, and turn off shadows, receive shadows, self shadows, and finally use sky integration so that when I can push this back into the haze, it will look like it's going behind the haze. So at the moment it's too close to us, and I want it behind that line of haze, so that's where the sky integration comes in, very handy feature. So I'll just enlarge this and move it away from the camera until I'm getting it interacting with the haze. So it's not far enough back yet, so it's going to have to be bigger and further back. So I'll just try and drag it back. Sometimes if things get above the orthogonal cameras, it makes them difficult to select, and you have to select them in this view. So there's my sun, get it down on the horizon there, and then depending how far back I put it will depend on how much it's affected by the haze. So if I want it to be less affected, I can thin the haze out or move it forwards or backwards accordingly. So that's my volumetric material, giving that softened outlook on that. If I want to modify the colour of that, I can do it through the ambient channel here and make it a more yellowy colour. The adjustment's quite tricky because of the material effect, so you can see that's gone a bit yellow. However, it's still not giving us any light output, so I'll just position my mouse pointer roughly where that middle of that sun is, hold Control and Alt and left click and bring the sunlight into that position. Now at this point what I can do is create a distant light source, and then I'll go into Sky and Fog and find out what the azimuth and altitude of the sun is. That's 18.4 and 1.2, and then edit my distant light source and go 18.4 and 1.2, render in scene. You see it's rather bright, so I'll get rid of the specular. I don't need that at the moment, and now you can see where are we going with this. 8.4. Let me just remember to keyframe it, otherwise it'll forget. And what should we have for the diffuse output? Maybe 20. So there we go. So I'll check out of there now and give that a quick render. So we've got a shadow that's being cast by this. I suppose I should remember that this was a yellowy sort of sun, so I can change the colour of the light output to yellow, that's no problem. And then I'll just return my Bryce sun back to its position below the horizon, so that's changed the effect of that glow. So there's a shadow associated with this sun, and the difference in colour because this is a different coloured sun. Because I'm adding to the sky, this colour here is not going to have any effect at all. So that can be fully black, which is an advantage, because if it is, then if I use sun and moon and celestial, I can introduce a few stars to make it a bit more science fiction-y, and the sun glow colour will suppress them in the area of the sun, and so we should get some stars up here where it's a bit darker. Right, let's get another sun going just here. So I'll take my sphere, copy and paste it, pop it up here, make it a bit smaller, modify the colour. We'll have this as a white sun. There we go. And then hold Control and Alt down and get my sun in the same position. You'll see that that's made that look rather bright now, perhaps unnecessarily so, but don't worry about that. We're just getting the sun position from here, so that's 353.4 and 23.2. So I'll get my distant light, copy and paste that, edit, and try and remember 353.4 and 23.2. I think that was it. It's looking a bit bright and a bit yellow there, so we'll have that one back up to white, take this down to a more reasonable level for the effect we're aiming for. Remember to keyframe it so it doesn't pop back into its original position, then restore the sun back to the horizon so it's providing that glow effect. And so now we've got this effect where I don't know where my stars have gone. Where have my stars gone? Oh, because I didn't save those in the sky setting, that's why. I should have done that first. So if I go back here and then just Control and Alt, clear the save sky, and then just left click on there to add it back in, and then give that a render. And now we've got this sun giving this shadow, and that sun setting down there providing that shadow, and ambient light arriving from the rest of the sky. And you can go on like this, just adding more suns to the sky, recording their position, adding a distant light associated with it until you have the effect you want. And you've still got your image-based lighting in there to provide some general ambient light, the level of which you can alter with HDRI effect, and when it comes to final rendering you can get more high quality ambient light effect through by turning that down. Or you can turn it off depending on the power of your PC and what you need for your scene. The only thing I would suggest is it's probably a good idea to add some terrain features here, particularly if you've got sun on the horizon, because if the horizon will actually extend behind that object, and but if you move it too far back, it'll get difficult to manipulate in the scene. As I suggested, and I nearly forgot, we'll just try the Bryce clouds and you'll see what effect they have on this scene. And this is where you could have an issue, because you can see the Bryce clouds in the sky are actually, the sun's clearly coming through the bottom of them there, which might not be such a good effect. You really want them to look like they're going behind, the sun's going behind the clouds, so you might want to change the way the clouds are arranged, perhaps on a tilting plane so they go behind the horizon, so to speak, because bear in mind the Bryce world's an infinitely flat one and the planets are, well, round, spherical. So there you go. I think that's the end of the video. I hope that answered the question adequately, but if you have any further questions, then please feel free to pose them. Oh, star glow. Oh yeah, we'll do star glow because that's always a nice effect. So you can use color perspective to change things quite radically, and if you turn that right up, you can then modify, and it's going to probably turn out to be quite tricky this, but you can modify things so you get some glow in the stars, but these settings have to be quite small in comparison if you've turned the color perspective right up. Because obviously use different values of color perspective, it just takes a while to set up. So there you go. Oh, that worked out okay. So if you use the color perspective, you can get a nice glowing effect around the edges of your stars, which just adds a little bit of something. So I think that really is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed that. Cheers now.